Welcome to an alternative media outlet.
We'll never drink your medicine and we'll never think your way. Masters of broken promises are born to manipulate. Your mind is a vault of prejudice, but we see through the door. Your dirty little secrets aren't so secret anymore. We'll never drink your medicine.
GMOs. What a way to start a Friday night. What can I say? I'm a Canadian. I love my Timmies. Welcome to week 6 here on Fact vs. Theory. As always, I'm Ryan Griska, signing in. And this week I'm relaying the facts that we know about the corporate giant and our primary food provider in the Western world, Monsanto. Let's face it, these days, economy is hard all around. Many of us struggle day to day just to make ends meet in modern society. But what does this poverty do to the people? Well, it often pushes us to consume foods that we're not necessarily happy with consuming, or just straight up aren't good for our bodies. But we all need to eat. And with all this talk about genetically modified foods, clearly we as a race are moving away from natural and organic foods into replacement food wannabes. But as more and more time goes on, more of us are starting to finally come to realize that the corporations who bring us our food really aren't here for us, the people. Even though it's our hard-earned money that we put into their foods, but whatever. That being said, everyone's waited a week already. Not going to make you wait any longer. Here we go. 7 known facts about Monsanto. Number 1. Monsanto and their founding. Like always, the first facts are beginning to flow where it all began. In 1901, Monsanto was created by a man named John Francis Queeny. Before actually creating the company, turned corporation nowadays, he was working for Meyer Brothers Drug Company, which was, at the place and time, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. John Queeny invested his life savings in 1989, 2 years after he began working for them, into a sulfur refinery. And, only 2 years after that, created Monsanto Chemical Works, where he produced Saracen, just to sell it off to the Meyer brothers. For those of you who haven't heard of Saracen, it's an artificial sweetener, almost 300 to 400 times as sweet as your common table sugar. Not much different than modern aspartame, really. Monsanto began profiting money in 1905, but John Queeny didn't actually start full-time with Monsanto until 1906. Over a century old and still operating. See a problem here? If not, time to hit you with the next fact. Number 2. Monsanto and genetically modified organisms. We've all heard about GMOs, right? Well, if not, buckle in. GMOs is short for genetically modified organisms. They're a product of gene splicing and a primary technique of biotechnology and engineering. Back in 1982, scientists who worked for Monsanto created the first ever GMO seeds. But it wasn't until 1994, after approved by the FDA, that the first GMO crop, the Flavors, I don't know how to pronounce that, but basically a tomato crop, was actually introduced to the public. At the time, it was a method to be used to change and help world hunger. However, over the last 20 years, the safety of GMOs has been heavily studied, and with every passing day, links to more and more diseases are being found with GMO consumption. You know, one would assume, with more and more proof coming out, that there would be more lawsuits about this kind of thing. Someone's really dropping the ball here. As a side note, I kind of want to go into the countries and what they're all about. Basically Canada and the US. In Canada, we're most prominently known to host GMO crops for soya, canola, corn, and sugar beets. While imports from the US to Canada include GE varieties of papaya, cottonseed oil, squash, and it's even in our milk products. I miss the good old days when cows ate organic food. Milk really never tasted better. Number 3. Monsanto and pesticide use. If you don't know about these pesticides and herbicides yet, this one ought to trip you out. Between the years of 1964 and 1969, the US military began using a highly toxic herbicide called Agent Orange. At the time, it was often being used to destroy the natural forest cover for the Vietnamese troops during the war, but was also introduced to most of the crops to poison their soldiers or starve them altogether. During this time, nearly 4.8 million people were exposed to Agent Orange, and it led to the approximated deaths of 400,000 people. It also left 500,000 babies born with birth defects. In fact, in 1984, many of the veterans of the Vietnamese War received a payload of $180 million. Even so, Monsanto still refused to admit that they were liable for the actions taken. But it doesn't stop there. To this day, Monsanto continues to use another herbicide, although not as powerful as Agent Orange, is still harmful to humans, called Roundup, which I'll get into in a little bit here. Number 4. Monsanto's corporate pull on other companies. If you're a conspiracy theorist, you hear about how corporations ultimately run our world. Well, here's another prime example. Overall, Monsanto owns a total of 69 different companies that produce the food we consume on a daily basis. Some of the major ones that they own include Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Kraft, Heinz, General Mills, Quaker, and Pillsbury. I'm just going to give you guys all a quick example, and this very post has been seen all over by people who follow the pages on Facebook, March Against Monsanto, Millions Against Monsanto, or other affiliate or individual pages on their own. Check it out. I know that's a little hard to read, but you can find this on trueactivist.com. So just punch in what companies Monsanto own. You'll see it. Check it out. I'm not going to get into this too much more, as it pretty much speaks for itself. But ultimately, I don't think any single corporation should have this much pull. You open a farm, they will buy you out. Everyone has their price, it seems. Number 5. Monsanto and political pull. Corruption seems to sink its teeth into almost everything, and Senate is no different than this. Thanks to a man named Anthony Gucciardi, I don't know how it's pronounced, a long-term member of the Natural Society, a list of many prominent congresspeople have been linked to being paid off by Monsanto. This list has exposed both Republican and Democrat politicians. Based on the disclosed and discovered amounts, approximately $72,000 has been paid out to the Democrats, while a whopping $190,000 have been paid off to the Republicans. And that's just the politicians. Then there's Senate. A grand total of $121,000 has been paid out to both Senate parties combined, again with the Republicans being paid over double the amount of the Democrats. And this is just the amount we know. Considering this is what we know, you can only imagine how much more money was thrown around that's yet to be discovered. Talk about selling your soul for a quick buck. Number 6. Monsanto and the bee population. Alright, let's get back on the subject of Roundup. Roundup is another name for basically replacing the original name of the product, glyphosate, which many people have been known to react badly to due to allergies or genetic DNA structure. And even though you can find this in any Lowe's or Home Depot or any home hardware store, it's still got its negative effects on human health. But to make matters worse, Roundup has a much stronger effect, not on us. Oh no, mainly on the bee population. Many people know just how crucial bees are to our crops and their growth. Unfortunately, in the last 5 years, there's been a massive reduction in the number of healthy bees that have been pollinating many of our crops for many, many years. Though Roundup's effect on bees don't directly kill them, it creates feeding issues and lowers their overall ability to track and find food sources. In the long term, it's ultimately led to much slower and lesser crop yields than normal for organic foods, and has given GMOs a very strong position for necessity in modern society. Guys, if the bees die, then we're almost guaranteed to follow in suit. Either that, or we'll all be forced to eat fake food. Think about it. And last but not least, number 7, Monsanto and the public disapproval. The public has spoken! Alright, so the battle's far from over. But given public disapproval, there will come a time where this corporation, is bound to flounder. This year marked the 3rd annual March Against Monsanto back in May, in which over 400 cities from over 40 different countries across the world have spoken out in disgust and protest. Let me give you guys a brief rundown. Approximately 500 protesters marched in Los Angeles, many of which bringing their families and even their smaller children. About 3,000 people marched against Roundup use in Paris, including groups like Greenpeace and Stop TAFTA, an anti-capitalist group. Another 2,500 marched on the European headquarters in Basel and Morges, Swiss cities. This is the base headquarters for pretty much all of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And everyone, this is just a tiny, tiny list. There have been many more protests with even larger amounts of people standing up to this corporation. I think it's safe to say that more and more people are waking up to the harmful effects of GMOs daily. So much so that over the last few months alone, Monsanto's profits have dropped almost 15%. Though that may not seem like a lot to a major multi-billion-dollar company, that's some pretty heavy damage. And even as I talk about this, more and more protests are being arranged by activist groups all over the world. So long as people have a voice, peaceful change is possible. And companies like this are digging their own graves the more and more they try to lie about it. Well, that's about all I have for you guys this week. Despite the overwhelming damage they've done to humanity over the years with this fake food, sometimes we have little choice. No. Wait a second, we do have options. But it's not something that'll happen overnight. If you are able to, and you have a place to do so, grow your own food. Create your own harvests. Eat what you can manage for yourselves. And of course, if you're not able to, there are laundry lists of companies that don't genetically modify their foods. And these are the companies we should be supporting as the human race. It's pretty evident that Monsanto and other mega corporations like this really have little regard for our health. So we have to take those matters into our own hands and continue to voice out on our disgust. Or just don't buy them. That seems to be working pretty efficiently. Don't you agree? Like every week, this is a small list of information. Links will be in the description below. Check it out for yourself. There's a lot more that you can gather. This is just the gist of what's out there. On a side note, guys, I had tons of fun doing this video. I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but I'm exhausted. I've been doing this all night. But I've been watching and monitoring the March Against Monsanto for a long, long time now, and I have to say that this was my personal favorite video yet. If you like these videos, like Fact vs. Theory on Facebook, or click that little subscribe button down below. Go on, go click it. And to any new viewers to Fact vs. Theory, it's an independent project, no budget. I just do this from my own home, take time out of my own day, do my own research, and put it into videos for you to find the facts. So, there you are. And for all those who tune in every week or catch my weekend vlogs, I really hope to see you all this weekend for my little vlog discussing a little bit about my take on both the Canadian and the US elections coming later on this year. Maybe. That being said, I'll catch you all this weekend or next Friday. Fact versus Theory. Exposing the truth. One theory at a time. Catch you soon, folks. Peace.